We know Nelson Mandela, the symbol, the hero, the saint. But who was the man behind the legend? What were his struggles, his flaws, his moments of doubt? This is a journey beyond the icon, to discover the real Nelson Mandela, the man who changed a nation and inspired the world.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Revolution Show. If you're new here, and we're about to dive into something super exciting today. Whether you're here to learn, laugh, or just pass the time, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the fun. Let's jump right into it. Nelson Mandela, a detailed story of courage, conviction, and transformation. Chapter 1. The Seed of Leadership, Early Life and Education, 1918-1944. Rolihlahla Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in the small village of Mvezo in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. His father, Gadla Henry Mafekanyiswa, was a chief and a counselor to the Thembu royal family. His mother, Nosekeni Fanny, was the third of Gadla's 4 wives. The name, Rolihlahla, means troublemaker in Xhosa, a fitting foreshadowing of his future role in challenging the status quo. Mandela's early life was steeped in Xhosa traditions and customs. He herded cattle, participated in tribal rituals, and learned about the history and values of his people. His father's death when he was only 9 years old marked a turning point in his life. He was adopted by Chief Jongantaba Dalindaibo, the regent of the Thembu people, who became his guardian and mentor. The regent enrolled Mandela in a local missionary school, where he was given the English name, Nelson. He excelled in his studies, showing a keen intellect and a natural leadership ability. He later attended Clarkbury Boarding Institute in Heldtown, a Methodist college, where he focused on Western education. In 1939, Mandela enrolled at the University of Fort Hare, the only institution of higher learning in South Africa that admitted black students. He studied law, but his political activism soon took precedence over his academic pursuits. He became involved in student politics, protesting against the university's policies and advocating for greater student rights. In 1940, Mandela was expelled from Fort Hare for participating in a student strike. The regent was furious with him, and arranged a marriage for him. Unwilling to be forced into a life he did not choose, Mandela fled to Johannesburg with his cousin Justice, setting the stage for a new chapter in his life. Chapter 2. The Fire of Resistance, Johannesburg and the ANC, 1944-1960. Johannesburg in the 1940s was a city of stark contrasts, where wealth and privilege coexisted with poverty and oppression. Mandela found work as a security guard and later as a clerk in a law firm. He also continued his legal studies through the University of Witwatersrand, where he met white and Indian students who shared his commitment to social justice. In 1944, Mandela joined the African National Congress (ANC), a political organization dedicated to ending racial discrimination and achieving equality for black South Africans. He quickly rose through the ranks, becoming a leader of the ANC Youth League, which advocated for more assertive action against the apartheid regime. Mandela and his colleagues developed a program of mass action, including strikes, boycotts, and civil disobedience, to challenge the apartheid laws. They organized protests against discriminatory laws, such as the pass laws that restricted the movement of black Africans. In 1952, Mandela and Oliver Tambo, a close friend and fellow lawyer, opened South Africa's first black law firm, providing legal assistance to victims of apartheid. They defended countless black Africans who were unjustly arrested, imprisoned, and evicted from their homes. Throughout the 1950s, Mandela faced constant harassment from the apartheid government. He was repeatedly arrested, banned from political activities, and subjected to surveillance and intimidation. Despite these challenges, he remained committed to the struggle for freedom. Chapter 3. The Turn to Armed Struggle, Sharpeville and Umkhonto we Sizwe, 1960-1964. The Sharpeville massacre in 1960 marked a turning point in the anti-apartheid struggle. Police opened fire on a crowd of unarmed black protesters, killing 69 people and wounding hundreds more. The massacre shocked the world and convinced Mandela and the ANC that peaceful resistance alone was no longer sufficient. The government banned the ANC and other anti-apartheid organizations, forcing them to go underground. Mandela and other ANC leaders concluded that armed struggle was necessary to overthrow the apartheid regime. In 1961, Mandela co-founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, Spear of the Nation, the armed wing of the ANC. The organization engaged in acts of sabotage against government infrastructure, targeting symbols of apartheid such as power plants, railway lines, and government buildings. Mandela believed that these acts of sabotage would disrupt the apartheid system and force the government to negotiate. Mandela went underground, traveling throughout South Africa and organizing resistance. He became known as the Black Pimpernel, eluding the police for months. He also traveled abroad to seek support for the anti-apartheid movement, meeting with African leaders and international activists. Chapter 4. Imprisonment, Robben Island and Beyond 1964–1990. In 1962, Mandela was arrested and charged with sabotage and other offenses. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but while serving that sentence, he was brought to trial again in 1964, along with several other ANC leaders, on charges of sabotage and conspiracy to overthrow the government. At the Rivonia trial, Mandela delivered his famous, "I am prepared to die," speech, outlining his commitment to a democratic and free society. He declared that he was prepared to die for his beliefs, but that he hoped to live to see a South Africa where all people were treated equally. Mandela and his co-defendants were sentenced to life imprisonment. He spent the next 27 years in prison, most of it on Robben Island, a notorious prison off the coast of Cape Town. Life on Robben Island was harsh and brutal. Mandela and his fellow prisoners were subjected to racial abuse, forced labor, and solitary confinement. They were denied basic necessities, such as adequate food, clothing, and medical care. Despite these hardships, Mandela remained resilient and continued to inspire his fellow prisoners. He organized study groups, led political discussions, and maintained his commitment to the struggle for freedom. He became a symbol of resistance against apartheid and a rallying point for the anti-apartheid movement around the world. As the years passed, international pressure on the South African government to release Mandela grew. The United Nations, foreign governments, and anti-apartheid organizations campaigned for his release. In the late 1980s, the government began secret negotiations with Mandela, hoping to find a way to end the conflict. President F.W. de Klerk, who came to power in 1989, recognized that apartheid was unsustainable and that a negotiated settlement was necessary. On February 11, 1990, after 27 years of imprisonment, Nelson Mandela was released from prison. His release was greeted with jubilation around the world. Chapter 5. Transition and Reconciliation, From Prisoner to President 1990–1999. After his release, Mandela embarked on a period of transition, working with President de Klerk to dismantle apartheid and establish a multiracial democracy. He traveled throughout South Africa, calling for peace and reconciliation. In 1993, Mandela and de Klerk were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to end apartheid and establish a new South Africa. In 1994, South Africa held its first multiracial elections. Mandela was elected as the country's first black president, marking a historic turning point in South African history. As president, Mandela focused on reconciliation, nation building, and social justice. He established the Truth and Reconciliation Commission (TRC) to investigate human rights abuses committed during the apartheid era. The TRC offered amnesty to perpetrators who confessed their crimes and provided a platform for victims to tell their stories. Mandela also worked to improve the lives of black South Africans, investing in education, healthcare, and housing. He promoted economic development and worked to reduce poverty and inequality. He served as president until 1999, when he stepped down, setting a precedent for democratic governance in South Africa. Chapter 6. The Elder Statesman, Legacy and Global Impact 1999–2013. After his presidency, Mandela continued to advocate for social justice, human rights, and peace around the world. He established the Nelson Mandela Foundation, which supports a variety of charitable causes, including education, healthcare, and conflict resolution. He became an elder statesman, mediating conflicts and promoting dialogue in various parts of the world. He spoke out against poverty, inequality, and injustice, and inspired millions of people to take action. Mandela passed away on December 5, 2013, at the age of 95. His death was mourned around the world, and his legacy continues to inspire people to fight for a better future. Key themes and enduring lessons. The power of forgiveness. Mandela's ability to forgive his oppressors and work towards a united South Africa is a testament to his leadership and his commitment to reconciliation. The importance of education. Mandela believed that education was the key to unlocking human potential and building a better world. The pursuit of social justice. Mandela dedicated his life to fighting for social justice and equality, and his legacy inspires others to do the same. The triumph of the human spirit. Mandela's story is a testament to the resilience, courage, and indomitable spirit of the human being. Imprisonment and isolation. Unjust confinement. Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years, primarily for his role in fighting against apartheid. The charges were politically motivated, and his imprisonment was a symbol of the regime's oppression. Harsh conditions. He endured difficult prison conditions, including hard labor, solitary confinement, and limited contact with his family. Propaganda and attempts to break him. The government tried to discredit him and weaken his resolve through propaganda, offering him conditional releases that he refused because they required him to renounce the armed struggle. They hoped to break his spirit and undermine his influence. Fighting apartheid. Brutal oppression. Apartheid was a system of racial segregation and discrimination that denied basic rights to the black majority in South Africa. Violence and repression. The apartheid regime used violence, intimidation, and repressive laws to suppress dissent and maintain its power. Organizing resistance. Mandela played a crucial role in organizing and leading resistance movements, including the African National Congress (ANC) and its armed wing, Umkhonto we Sizwe. This required immense courage and strategic planning. International sanctions and isolation. While international pressure grew against apartheid, it was a slow and difficult process. Mandela and the ANC had to work tirelessly to garner support from the global community. Maintaining unity within the anti-apartheid movement. Ideological differences. The anti-apartheid movement included diverse groups with varying ideologies and strategies, from nonviolent resistance to armed struggle. Internal conflicts. There were internal conflicts and disagreements within the ANC and other anti-apartheid organizations, which required careful leadership and diplomacy to manage. Keeping the movement alive while imprisoned. Even while in prison, Mandela had to find ways to maintain communication with the outside world and influence the direction of the anti-apartheid movement. During transition to democracy. Negotiating the end of apartheid. Deep distrust. Negotiating with the apartheid government was fraught with challenges, including deep-seated distrust and resistance from hardliners on both sides. Complex political landscape. The political landscape was highly complex, with multiple parties and factions vying for power. Reconciling with the past. Finding a way to reconcile with the past and address the injustices of apartheid was a delicate and challenging task. Managing expectations. High hopes. The end of apartheid brought immense hope and expectation for a better future, but also presented the challenge of managing those expectations realistically. Socioeconomic inequalities. Addressing the deep-rooted socioeconomic inequalities inherited from apartheid required long-term planning and resources. Preventing civil war. Potential for violence. The transition to democracy was a volatile period, with the potential for widespread violence and civil war. Appeasing extremists. Mandela had to navigate the demands of various factions, including white supremacists and militant black groups, to prevent a descent into chaos. Building trust. Building trust and fostering reconciliation between different racial groups was essential to preventing conflict. Building a new nation. Creating inclusive institutions. Establishing democratic institutions that were inclusive and representative of all South Africans was a major undertaking. Addressing legacy of inequality. Tackling the legacy of inequality in areas such as education, healthcare, and housing required massive investment and policy changes. Promoting reconciliation. Promoting reconciliation and healing the wounds of the past was crucial to building a cohesive and unified nation. Personal sacrifice and health. Years lost. He sacrificed much of his adult life to the struggle, losing precious time with his family. Physical and mental toll. The years of imprisonment and struggle took a toll on his physical and mental health.